Hello everybody and welcome to Rest and Reason. I am so excited you're here with us today for this What's Wrong with Sorry, Trouble, Parcheesi, Pachisi, and Chaupar video. Now, that's a lot of different games and you might go, how will I crush this into a short time period? Well, it's because they're all very similar games and explaining them is going to be pretty simple. So buckle in and let's get right into it. So first off, I want to explain that these are Partyside Ameritrash Games. Now, this means that these games are inside of the Ameritrash genre. They're kind of a mix of you controlling, interaction, and luck controlling the game. But they lean towards the party side of things, and that all comes down to the fact that this game has a lot of luck and a lot of interaction, and most of them have very little control over what you can do. But some of them, especially Chaupar, are leaning more towards the control side, so I didn't feel comfortable calling these a pure out party game. So they are an Ameritrash on the party side. Next up, let's talk about the main feel. The main feel of these games is a capture race. You hit other players, you capture them by sending them back home, and then finally, your goal is to reach the end with your 4 pawns first. Or if you're a team in some of these, you want your 8 pawns to get home first. And so it's a very simple and accessible game that a lot of people have loved for centuries. The main mechanic helps this by being a roll and move. You roll dice, you move things, or in the case of Sorry, you of course flip cards, but it functions almost identical to rolling dice. And so both of these games, all of these games, end up bringing this feeling that's just simple, fun, where you're trying to have that thrill of getting that die roll that you need to hit that opponent, to get into that place, to do what you need to do. So these games ended up being not recommended for me, except for Chaupar, which I would put as a bronze recliner. So this begs the question, why are these classic Indian games not a silver recliner? What has brought them down enough that they wouldn't be considered this? Well, before I get into why they don't deserve silver, I want to first focus on the positive and why they do deserve your attention and your interest on some level. So first off, we have Trouble, and Trouble brings to us the best produced of all of these. It has the Pop-O-Matic, which really is as fun as it sounds, as silly as the name is. It really is exciting, especially to a kid. The board is fantastic, especially for playing with kids, and it's small, portable, and something you can easily fit onto your shelf. Sorry has the best gimmicks. Their cards have so many interesting powers and ways that they can be used, and there's even a card that just sends other people straight home without you having to land on them. It makes the game really fun gimmick-wise, and those slides, it's so satisfying when you can send a bunch of people home, back to their start by sliding right past them. For Parcheesi, it's an American classic. It's a game that people remember from their childhoods, and it's so simple and accessible that they want to show it to their children. For Pachisi, it's an Indian classic, which Parcheesi actually comes basically straight from. But just like an American classic, it's beloved by Indians because it's a cultural thing. It's something from their history that they get to show their children that they got to enjoy as children. And I believe from my research that it is the national game of India. And finally, you have Chaupar. Now, this is the grandfather of the games, and like I said, it's the only one I recommend that you buy. Well, technically, we're going to have you buy a Parcheesi board and play Chaupar, but I'll talk about that later. But it is a really interesting little game, and especially for certain people, will be exactly the game they want. So now that I've explained what strengths they have, let's get into their weaknesses. And all of these games have 3 of the same weaknesses. First, they all require exact moves. You have to get exactly the right number to get out of your start area, unless you're playing Chaupar, and to get into your ending area. The problem with these kinds of moves is they slow down the thrill of the game. They often leave one player never getting what they need, and that one player sometimes can't even play the game because they're just sitting at the beginning. I remember this distinctly with Sorry. I remember it with Trouble. I don't remember it as much with Parcheesi because I didn't play it as much. But with pretty much every game of this type, I found that there was always somebody in the game not getting to play because they weren't able to get that very basic 6 or whatever they needed to get out. The next thing is all of them have practically no art. Even the old traditional ones are very bland. There's actually a whole courtyard used for Chaupar, and I was like, oh, that's so exciting. It's probably going to be really cool mosaics and stuff. And it ended up just being pavement in squares. It's been from the very beginning that this has just been kind of a boring checkerboard with boring pieces on it. And that's really disappointing because you could bring so much art and beauty to this game, but none of these really did. Finally, they have no mechanical theme. In fact, they don't even try to have a theme. None of it even makes sense, especially things like the word capture when you're sending people back to their house. It's not really capturing. Capturing means you take them and keep them, not you send them somewhere back to their own house. None of the game makes any sense, and some people might ask, well, why does that matter? Well, when you're competing against games like Downforce, Camel Up, Flamme Rouge, great racing games that are also appropriate for children, you can show children, wow, look at this cool theme. Wouldn't you like to be a race car driver? And kids can go, yeah, that sounds like fun. But when you say, hey, do you want to move a bunch of random pieces that look like beehives around a cloth? Kids are going to have a harder time latching onto that, and honestly, a lot of adults will too, and that's why I wish that they had put a theme on it, especially with these later versions where they could have taken a traditional game and made it thematic. So now let's get into the individual problems with the games. First off, you have Trouble. Now, Trouble has no control in it whatsoever, and last time I played Trouble, it was even frustrating for the children because they couldn't get what they needed to even get to do basic fun parts of the game, like hitting other people, or even just moving their pieces because they were trapped at the home space. It's a very frustrating game, and that Pop-O-Matic is a vicious master who will never let you have any fun. Sorry ends up being one of two extremes. Either it's a really active game where everybody's bouncing everybody back to the home space, or the start space, I should say. But when it is like that, it ends up taking way longer than the 30 minutes or so that this game is most fun at, because it's supposed to be a quick, fun experience. When it takes over 30 minutes, usually ends up not feeling that way. And when you have your guy sent back for the 4th or 5th time, you start realizing this game is like Sisyphus rolling his stone up the hill. It's just coming back and rolling on top of you, buddy, and you'd better watch out. The other version is that almost nobody's hitting anybody, almost nobody's getting sent back, and it's kind of boring. You're just going around in a circle and then you win. Neither is a good option, and this game really leaves you with only one of two. For Parcheesi, the biggest issue is it's just too many spaces. There are so many spaces in this game. I believe it's 64 spaces on a traditional Parcheesi board. And that means that you will, for your 4 pawns with 2 dice, have to take at least 30 rolls to do it. That means you and all the other players are going to do at least 30 rolls. And then you're probably going to have to do more because people are sending you back. This is incredibly frustrating. Again, for a game that's supposed to be quick, fun, and thrilling, now it's going to take you over maybe 100 die rolls I could see people doing in a really strategic version of this. And that just gets draining. You don't want to roll dice that long most of the time. You want to have it done and then play again twice, not do 1 round in an hour. Pachisi takes this and amplifies it. It has so much luck to it. It can go all the way up to 25 spaces on your turn. And honestly, the average number of spaces you're probably going to move is more like 3. So you getting that 25 spaces is going to be massive. And there's an entire strategy in the game that's based off of just sitting somewhere completely safe and hoping you get that 25 spaces. That doesn't lead to great gameplay. On top of that, you now have not only the long board of the 64 spaces, but you also have to move 8 pawns that much. 8 pawns, and that means you're probably going to take even more than 30 turns, even more than you would in Parcheesi. So it's going to be even more frustratingly long for a game that should be quick, short, and fun. Lastly, we have Chaupar. Now, Chaupar gets rid of a lot of the luck problems and makes it so that you're in control, but you still have to go by the luck. It has 3 dice, which makes the game a little bit faster, but it still has the issue that you're playing as a team and thus have to get 8 pawns across. Or if you're playing a 2-player game, you have both groups that you're controlling. So ultimately, again, it's still going to take a very long time, and for these kinds of games, you want it to be fun and fast so that both beginners, relaxing people, and young children will be able to play and enjoy this kind of a fun game. So, I just gave a lot of negativity, and you're probably wondering, A, does this guy just think he's amazing and hate everything? And B, why the heck is he making a video about all of these if he's just gonna disrespect them? Well, I'm not trying to disrespect them. Like I said, I started with their strengths because these games do have something beautiful to offer. And because I think they have something beautiful to offer, I actually am going to be making a fixed video. A video where I try to add a little bit of theme, take some of the best rules from these traditional games, and make them into something that's going to be a little bit more fun for you and your family to play. So definitely check that out next week when it comes out. But for the rest of you, there are going to be some people out there that I know this game is for you. And I want to tell both of those groups, yes, you should get this, and you are the groups who want this. Our first group are nostalgic parents. If you loved this game as a child, I am not going to be the one to tell you shouldn't get it. In fact, I would say get this game. Enjoy this game. Specifically, get this Parcheesi board. Get the Parcheesi board so you can play Chaupar, Pachisi, or Parcheesi, whichever one you choose. It's way more flexible, and I would specifically say get this version of it with the beauty of trying to capture the richness of Indian culture, because it's going to be way more fun to look at for your children and a more beautiful piece of kind of art for you. Also, for nostalgic parents, I think this game is going to be so much fun for you because you're going to get all of those remembrances. You're going to be able to share this experience with your children. And if you're playing this one, you're going to get the best version of that and hopefully get your children the best version. I, of course, would recommend that you check out my fixed video to hopefully make it even better for you and your children and still be the game you remember, just with a few tweaks to make it more fun and thematic. The second group are traditional gamers. Now, of course, my fixed video would not be for you traditional gamers because the reason you're going to love Parcheesi, and actually specifically Chaupar, is because it's such an ancient game. It's such a great representation of Indian culture throughout the centuries. And when you play Chaupar, you can realize that just like a guy 1,000 years ago, an emperor 1,000 years ago, you are playing this game. That's exciting. And if you want to know the rules for Chaupar, I'm going to put them in the link in the description. And it's from, I believe it's Masters of Board Gaming. And they have a lot of different things on traditional games. It also has the Pachisi rules. And it's going to make the game really fun for you as a traditional gamer. And I would highly recommend you get this because this is one of the most ancient. And like I said, I believe it is India's national game. So you can't leave this off of your shelf if you're a traditional gamer. Now, please put down in the comments, let me know which ones of these games you played in your childhood, which ones you love, and when you had the same problems I had. Also, please hit that like button, hit that subscription button, ring that notification bell. Let us know that this content is something you want more people to see and that you are enjoying. And if you do happen to have $1, please throw it our way once a month. It will help us immensely over here at Patreon, and it will help us keep making these to help you guys enjoy board games more. And as always, thank you so much for joining us today on Rest and Reason.